is beautiful. It creates a world which is different. It creates a world which is and sometimes which is not. Is there a moral responsibility with a writer as to where to stop sometimes when it's fiction? Or do you think it's like for the audience or for the readers to know what's right and what's wrong? Is there a line ever in between somewhere? Anyway, we can start with you, ma'am.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Fantastic to be here and see you all in person. I had this thing moved because I wanted to see each and every one of you. So what you asked, Divya, was that whether writers have a responsibility to be morally correct. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think so. I think the audience is smart enough. So because writers are not moral gatekeepers. Writers just, at least when it comes to my stories, I tell a story in the best way that I possibly can. So if the character does something unacceptable, that's where the beauty comes, and that's where we explore what is gray, what is black, and what is white. For example, in my book, The Homecoming, it's a very different kind of a relationship, morally not sanctioned by society. And I think it's important to explore these issues, because it's only when we explore these issues, questions are raised as to what is permissible, what is non-permissible. Of course, by law, we know this is allowed, this is not allowed. But when it comes to our day-to-day behavior, I think books can give us a lot of avenue to explore things, and I think it's very important not to hold back when you're writing a book. As a writer, I do not hold back. I write what the story demands, I write what the plot demands, I write what the character demands, and as far as I'm concerned, there is no lines that writers should not cross.
Absolutely. And if you would want to probably add on to it before we roll.
Sure. Hello. Firstly, thanks for having me here, and lovely to see you all. And I missed the response that the crowd gave when you asked them lunch kiya kya. I hope lunch kiya because bhuke pet literature or philosophy nahi samajh mein aata hai. So I hope the tummy is full. And answering questions, I totally agree with Preeti when she said that, because I think we are writing and we are, excited about stories is because we should not be stopping anywhere. Yeah. But the one thing that I wanted to add was, so there are certain things which are claptraps, okay, which you as a storyteller know that if you write something shocking, which is not necessary to the story, but you know that people might react and you can get eyeballs, that personally I don't write. Because then I think I'm kind of faking the story from my end, because there's this filter of, okay, this portion people might, just lap it on, not because it's part of the story as such, but there's some shock value to it, unnecessary shock value. So certain shock values come from the narrative, which is great. So that's the only thing I would love to add. Otherwise, I think if we had to stop somewhere, then why the hell we are artists, Artists should not be stopped at all. Doesn't matter what. Yeah.
Yes. And I think the beauty of art is it's an expression and it's personal. If somebody relates to it, they relate to it. If they don't, they don't. Rochelle.
Yeah, so I've written, few short stories, poetry, and some screenplays. Many of them unproduced because I'm still a new screenwriter. But what I noticed about the themes that I look at is that when I think about sexuality or the taboo topics of, say, infidelity, or all these things, how much do I need to censor myself? Do I need to censor? Is there a fear somewhere that it might jeopardize the book or, me, my next work? But then I think this is a process in which you decide, each writer decides, what are the risks I'll take. Like, for example, in my book of poems, the latest one, Coins in Reverse, I have a poem called Rape Fantasies. And I needed to think twice because rape and fantasy doesn't go together necessarily as a term. And the poem, however, I was wondering, does it land where it has to land? And will it be misread? Will it be misinterpreted? Will it be anti-feminist? So many things, and I was almost going to say that, do I take this out from the collection? But I went ahead and I got it into the book, and my editor understood that as well. And the response for that one, which I thought, oh my God. The same thing is with one, a a story I wrote in Bombay Hangovers, a collection of short stories, my only collection of short stories, in which I was talking about a Brahmin eating beef in the much older days. And I had to think multiple times, can I do it? Can I say it? Is it okay to publish this? It's not about thinking about this. Yeah. We think unlimited. We think without censorship. But will it get caught somewhere? Will there be backlash, trolling? Do I care about it? How much of trolling am I ready to bear? Yeah. How much of it am I game for or not? I think these are the questions I ask myself, and where I feel, okay, I can risk it, I'll do it, and where I feel, no, I don't want the trolling because I want to concentrate on my next project, I will probably change a word or two.
Fantastic. You know, Rochelle, keep the mic on. Let's start a series that, of questions that I have in my mind. You know, when you're talking about your poems, Coins of River, they speak. I mean, there is imagery, but there are also societal ills that we've spoken about. There is anger, there's oppression, there's defiance. How do you find that balance? How do we keep the two together? Where there is imagery and there is also a social, realism that's needed.
So I think, see, everybody, first and foremost, I didn't say hello to all of you all because I am so lost in the youthful vibration of this place. But thank you so much for having me. And I'm so happy to be here with my co-panelists. So I think the balance is also something that each writer, each poet will choose what's their balance. And I think that is going to be, that's going to define their tone, their genre, the treatment, the temperature of what they write. It's very, very individual. So for me, I am in social reality. I do observe social life. I would like to balance that realism with imagination, because I'm so corrupt with imagination. And I would like to balance that with always what-if questions. What if this happened and that happened? So I don't think I would like to write everything very realistically, because then I would be a journalist. Yeah. So I would definitely have a little palette, and that's my palette. So definitely between drama and reality and lies.
So it's very important to find that balance, especially you have to create a picture that brings in people, and then you talk about things that you really believe in. I would want to ask you now, because your writing, Novoneel, is very different. We're talking about romance, we're talking about dark romance sometimes, the dark sides of it, sensuality, psychosexuality, especially, with Stranger and Black Suits You. As much as we love to read, I mean, we've been reading for years, but still, when it comes to sex and when it comes to romance in that zone, there's still a taboo. People still do not openly want to admit, okay, this is my favorite read, I've read this. How do we find that balance there? And can we do something about this taboo? Can people really get out of this, accept it in a better way? And what can young authors do if somebody wants to write in that genre?
I think that's why something called the DM was made. So people, use DM to message you and don't openly acknowledge the fact that they have read. So Black Suits You happened to be my first and only erotic thriller. And it was quite an experience receiving the feedback, because books prior to that, the readers which were loyal to me, a part of those readers were caught off guard, and they thought that, what you have written, we were not prepared for such a book, So they kind of didn't pick that book up, and I was like, will nobody read this, Because I always knew in India writing erotica is a little, it's a tricky thing, and that's why we don't have many erotica writers. But what happened eventually, after I think the book came out and 2-3 months later, there was a separate base of readers who picked up the book, and so much so that they started swearing by the book in the way they loved the content and appreciated it. So I was in a dichotomy whether to write another erotica or not. I still am, because I don't know how to find that balance. See, it all depends on the consumer. If they come out in the open and pick something up and they tell society at large that we are ready to accept it, I think more and more such stuff will come out. I think that responsibility, more than the artist or the writer or the storyteller, lies in the consumer, the readers, because if they don't pick it up in the open and they don't come out with it, then it will still remain a hush-hush thing. People will read it, but then again, they will not appreciate or come out in the open. So we will have a kind of a a notion that these don't work. But probably they do. You know, that's why 50 Shades of Grey becomes such a big hit in the West.
Yes.
But we are yet to come out with our version of 50 Shades of Grey. And when I say our version, I'm just talking about the number of people who consumed it per se. Whether you liked or you agree or with what the content is a separate discussion altogether, you know. So I don't know how to strike that balance. I feel that balance has to come from the readers, and why not? I mean, we are all evolving. I think we should be inclusive if we are talking about inclusivity in various ways, be it in sexuality and otherwise. Even for readers, I think, why do you want to read only a particular set of books? You know, like for example, I know what Preeti writes is very beautiful and very different from how I write.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that you should not read her book and read only me, or read, you know, only her and not me. Because it's there, you should pick her a book, read it, appreciate for what it is, and you also pick up other writers' book or Rochelle's book and appreciate for what it is.
Yes.
You should not be comparing, and that's how I think the literary world becomes beautiful, because there's everything for everyone. And you can pick and choose, and it's a buffet kind of a feel. You cannot ban something, you know, in your head or otherwise also. So I think the balance needs to be taken by the readers, because I feel very happy when a reader comes and says, you know, my favorite author is so-and-so. Which is great, because which means that you are reading a variety of books and, you know, novels, which is what I also want, that people should read more and more. Because if people read more and more, somewhere their radar and that gamut of reading will increase.
Yes,
and it's not just specific to one author or, you know, one particular set. So the bottom line, I think the balance has to come from the readers, where they should just step out of their comfort zone and pick up a book and say, this is what I want to read. For example, a person who only reads thriller, they should also come out of it and say, no, I want to read a nice, subtle, matured romance or a matured, slice of life story. So that's how I think the balance will eventually take place. Yeah.
I think this is how it is, right? And more importantly, whatever you read, accept it. There is no hiding and shying away from what you watch, what you consume, what you read. It is all about acceptance at the end of the day, and there is confidence when you accept something. In fact, you know, on that note, Preeti, we'll come to you. A place called Home, Alka's journey in first book, in second book, lot of complexities, and yet, you know, it comes from, I mean, for somebody who's read it, you know, hanging between forbidden love and what is right and what is wrong. Somewhere the youth today, and I would say not just the youth, even us, you know, we're always fighting between self-acceptance and I'm going to be strong. How do we now balance that? And maybe, you know, this is that generation that we can address this to, because yahan bahut zyada struggle hota hai when it comes to self-acceptance.
Yeah, so much like Alka, I think when you accept yourself, you become stronger.
Yeah.
And the number one tip to accept yourself, what I would give all of you is, turn off your notifications on social media and be on social media less. Yeah. Now you will wonder, why is that? How is self-acceptance related to social media? Simply because we consume so much. We consume such a lot of content. The content is designed to keep us scrolling. Invariably, you end up comparing yourself. You end up comparing the worst bit of yourself to the best bit which people put out there. And even though we know that it is all curated, I wouldn't call it fake, but it's curated for the social media. You cannot but help, for a minute you will feel. And me at age 53, if I feel it, I can only imagine what will go on in the mind of a 23-year-old or a 22-year-old or an 18-year-old. So it's very hard to get away. So, absolutely. So one thing which I keep saying is unfollow. I have my own 2 children. They are in their 20s. So, you know, when my daughter was younger, my daughter is 23 now. So when my daughter was younger, she's saying, Mama, in our thing, it's a huge thing to unfollow. I said, absolutely not a problem. We found a hack. We said, we'll mute everything. Yeah. So you don't see the updates. Because your mind does not have to be filled with constant updates of what others are doing. You have to be on your journey. If you're allowing your mind to be filled with comparisons, to be filled with what is this one doing, what is that one doing, I am lagging behind, you're not going to accept yourself. And I think there is beauty in flawed characters, because in my book, Alka is a very flawed character. She's the daughter of a maid. She's gone to this English medium school. She speaks with good accent and all of that, but yet she tries to hide her identity. But ultimately you will see in the book that her strength comes when she accepts herself and accepts and tells her secret openly. And I think this is very important. For accepting ourselves, compare yourself less to others. Yeah. Absolutely, and turn off those phone notifications. You will read more. When you read more, you are exposed to more worlds. You are exposed to more cultures. Yeah. You experience stories which you wouldn't have lived. You live many lives when you read many different kinds of books, like Novoneel said. So this would be my main thing to tell you guys, like, be on your phones less, be on your books more.
ये जितने लोगों ने हु किया है, आज कुछ लोगों को थोड़ा पहले अनफॉलो करना, थोड़ों को म्यूट करना और थोड़ा कम टाइम इंस्टाग्राम पे जाना. Can we do this? No, na? Somebody's been honest at least.
No, just put a timer, because I did the same thing. I found that my reading had come down.
Yes.
And I just put this, most of you who have iPhones, you can put that thing where it just fades, the app just fades. So I just put it after that time, I don't check my social media. And then my reading went up. I mean, it was a no-brainer, but
And it's important.
it took
so
me
important
effort to
have-
do it, yeah.
Yes.
So it's extremely important.
And one thing to add to that is also you can write, because you don't always have to write to publish. There's a lot of writing that can be done for catharsis, to love a language, to have clarity and organization of your thought, and a lot of writing, which you do probably, in olden days we used to have these lovely diaries, blogs then came about. But keep writing. You don't have to always think that, oh, I have to publish it. But that does something, because the more you write, the more curious you become to know about language and story worlds to read. So the more you write, the more you read, not necessarily with the aim to publish.
Absolutely. And the joy of underlining in a book and bookmarking a book is so much nice, वो आपको phone और tabs पे नहीं मिलेगा. So get a book, start reading it, even if it takes 6 months to complete one book, just pick a book today.
And I just wanted to add, ये सुन के हम तीनों को follow मत कर दे, unfollow मत करना.
But these are, the beauty of this panel is there are 3 different people writing 3 different genres, and it's just starting from somewhere. So pick one book and you'll gradually move. We're talking about words. Maybe, we'll start with poetry and then we'll move to the story bit. Rochelle, a lot of people want to write poetry. A lot of people think intrinsically every heartbreak leads to poetry. Thanks to Bollywood, sets that premise. But what is poetry for you, one? And secondly, there are a lot of people who are very scared to express through poetry. They think we might cross a line, or our vulnerability might be way too exposed. Do you want to say something to them?
So I think you're right actually. Every poem starts from love or heartbreak, the lack of love, or then re-loving.
Yeah.
But love is a very important rasa, that human beings face. Like nobody was talking about genres, right? You read one genre or not. Because we have the navarasas within us, what we want and crave is the navarasas outside us. And from there come the genres. So love is a very important fundamental need of everybody, no matter what you say, no matter the no strings attached, and no matter the situationships. Love is love, no matter which age and stage of life we are in. And from there, a lot of poetry comes. Poetry comes even for the love of country, for the love of self, for the love of everything, for the love of life itself, and querying life. When you're disturbed with life, it is a different way of love.
Yeah.
Because you engaged with it, and that's why it has disturbed you or amused you enough to write. Yeah. Now, talking about poetry or writing poetry, the form itself, yes, I do see that I meet an equal number of youth or anybody. People who are averse to poetry, they don't understand it and they don't go near it, and the people who are very, sensitive to it. Now, I feel it is to do with the musician inside you. If the musician inside you is awake, if the rhythm, the cadence inside you is awake, you will do your own shairi. You may do it in your language. You may do it as a haiku. You may do it in a lyrical form like I.I.M.U.N. I teach those forms. You might even do it in free verse, which is the most, a form that's contemporary. But poetry is not far away. In fact, I feel it is the telegram of the universe, because a novel, a screenplay, these are longer pieces to write. Yeah. They also take an outline, or they take piecemeal planning to write. You don't write a novel in a day. You don't write even a short story in a day. You take 5 days minimum to write a short story. Maybe you can write it in one go. But a poem you write in one exhalation. You don't have an outline for a poem. The poem is the only form that attacks you like a bolt of lightning in the here and the now, and you write it immediately. Because if you don't, you will miss the rhythm, cadence, and the whole lyricism in it. So it's one exhalation. This form is hence different. But what it does, you can actually transfer something like a Morse code in a poem in 2 minutes to someone else. And that canvas in 2 minutes could be of an entire galaxy. It could be of entire histories. You can very rarely convey anything in 2 minutes. Maybe an ad film, an ad in 30 seconds. But there are very few forms where you can convey telegraphically so fast something that is almost like the speed of light or telepathic thought. Everything else takes a little longer form to create and consume. So the way to approach poetry is read a lot of poetry, international poetry, read in your mother tongue. I feel we are going further and further away from our mother tongues, and we should go closer to our mother tongues, go closer to all other languages. We are blessed in India with so many languages. If we can't read in them, read their translations, read poetry, and then imbibe yourself, invoke the musician in you, and write. Yeah. Just write, just unleash, and yeah.
At least try. You know, the point is try. Maybe you have the idea, maybe you know what you want to do, just start it. When we talk about words, when we talk about inspirations, you've had a genre of writing, Novoneel, जिसमें आप लिखते जा रहे थे. And then, you know, with Remember Me is yours, your latest. Imagine there are two women who get out to search or to find love, and eventually they find a better life for themselves. It's a perfect plot. I don't even have to tell you more, you have to read and find out what happens. But how does this shift gradually happen from, or maybe, you know, in this book happened from, say, crime and dark romance to something like that?
Though I'm known and I write majorly, like of the 19 books that I've written, 19, 20 books, I think almost 16 are thrillers, 17 are thrillers. So I'm known for that, but I'm also, I work in the Hindi film industry, so I write a lot of stories which are not thrillers. So that itch to tell a story which is, and genre hop that way was always there, you know. But what happens is that, and every author who has written multiple books kind of faces this heat that if your readers like you in a particular genre, they will take some time to accept you in some other genre. Yep. Very prime example being J.K. Rowling. Yes. You know, she had to change her name also to, you know, get there, and yet she was not pardoned in a way, you know, because everyone wants Harry Potter out from her. You know, so what I felt was, let me just try once to not write a thriller per se, somehow have the style which my loyal readers like, and yet tell a story from the lens of a rom-com, you know, and that was basic. And you know what happens, right? So I've been writing from 15, 16 years. A time comes when, as a storyteller also, you know there's a certain comfort zone that you have and you want to step out of it. Yeah. You know, you want to step out of it, you want to see what happens. You know, whether you strike gold or you don't strike gold with the readers, that's a different story. But I think, again, what Rochelle was trying, there's no harm trying something. You know, even if you're doing it for the first time, or you have written for 15 years and still, somewhere I think that itch, because I went back to that thought that why did I want to become a storyteller? Because something new was exciting me, you know, a new story, a new idea. So why not this? So the root and the reason for Remember Me as yours was the fact that can I break my comfort zone, you know? Can I not write a thriller and can people still relate to my work? Yeah. I just wanted to see it as an experiment. And obviously there were these two characters of Nityami and Falak who kind of you know, took over me, and I got obsessed with them and I wanted to write about them. Yeah. And invariably there happens a murder also in the book, which is, you know, where, you know, I think it had to happen if I'm writing a book somewhere. But I tried to keep the tone very, you know, rom-comish kind of. So the experience was great, and I think everyone, it doesn't matter what you're doing, even if you're in literature or in life in general, I think whenever you think you're very comfortable at something, I think you should just step out and step back and do something which is completely out of your comfort zone, because that also tells you a lot about yourself. Yeah. You know, and that's very interesting, I feel.
And you know what happens with books, especially with stories like these, usually when we're talking and we're sitting with our friends, what do we say? I need to travel, I need to find myself, I need to do this. And with protagonists in book, we start relating. Preeti, I would want to ask you too, you know, when we read books, in those protagonists we find ourselves. mostly the protagonists in these books are flawed, they have their issues, they are imperfect, and we know, okay, this person is like me. And then comes the real world, where all of us want to be perfect, where we will never ever publicly or say even, in the families accept that, okay, these are my imperfections, or this is where I'm lacking. How do we, and especially, if I can ask you and, to talk to this group that we have, how do we find that balance between that imperfection and not seeking for perfection all the time?
So for me personally, what has helped me is journaling. Last 40 years I have journaled. Wow. So I agree with what Rochelle said, that write every single day. So I do these journaling workshops because I said it's benefited me so much. I want to pass on the knowledge. And people think that there's nothing in my life to write about. What will I write? Every day if you write the same thing. I went to college, this happened, it's very boring. But there are parts of yourself that you can explore through journaling. You can, at the end of the day, you can just write 1 or 2 lines on what happened, and you can write your flaws, what you want to improve on, what you think you could work on. Those are things that you could write 1 page at the end of the day before you go to bed, and write your plans for tomorrow. Tomorrow I will do this. Suppose you have planned to run. For me, that's what's worked like a charm. Because when I'm writing in a journal, as a child, my father had a transferable job. So we moved from school to school. So every school I went, I was a different one. And it's very hard to be accepted. Today, when I walked into Parul University campus, it looked like a massive jungle. I just looked at it, I said, I don't know how a young person comes here is going to feel for the first time, because it's literally the sea of people and you don't know where your place is. So we all need anchors. And for me, the journal has been my anchor. It is a very powerful thing to write. Because you don't have to write stories. You don't have to write stories. You can write what you want to become. You can literally write your way to become the person you want to be. I'm 53. I started running a few months ago. August 22nd, 2024, I started running. December, I ran the Dubai Marathon, 10 kilometers, and completed it, won a prize in my age category. So and it was all journal. So I would track my runs. I would write, okay, tomorrow I'll do this. I followed a training plan. So if you plan your life like that, it is incredible what you can achieve. You will be so surprised. And manifestation, huge believer of manifestation. Write what you want and just leave it right. Thank you, universe, for whatever you want. Come back to it a year later. You will be so surprised how much you've achieved, because writing is such a powerful thing. You're giving commands to your subconscious brain. And without realizing, you'll follow it. You'll become a better person for writing. So do write and hide it from your parents, or write online or lock it up, because a lot of young people have this fear that somebody might take it and read it, then what happens? So yes, writing is one very powerful way to explore yourself, make yourself better, and accept all your flaws, because nobody is perfect, and it's fine not to be perfect.
I think that's perfect. Write a diary, write a letter to yourself every day. 1 year later, just open today's page and see how different and how evolved you would be at that point of time, and you'll be like, was this me writing? You see a change in yourself, which probably your friends and your parents also wouldn't notice. And Preeti mentioned, I saw the tweet where you said that at least I can now say I'm a writer who runs in that tweet. So it's incredible, right? You do things that you want to do. Certain things that about your writings particularly, Rochelle, if I come to you, you write a lot about women's experiences, how they defy societal norms, they do things. One, are we looking at finding equal rights for women through our writings? And secondly, if we were discussing parts of your poetry, if you can just share some so that, we have through your pen.
So no, feminism or sexuality is one of my themes, but not all of them, because I think I'm equally interested in the UFOs, I'm equally interested in murder, I'm interested in anything actually. But what happens is that they say that there are many themes that a writer explores once, and then you go and explore other themes, because there are so many themes to explore. And there are some themes you come back to. So I was wondering, what is the pattern of coming back to certain themes? And I thought it is the leitmotif of a thematic spectrum. When you come back to certain themes all the time, either it is unresolved inside you, or it's unresolved in the world around you. So you keep coming back to certain themes, and certain themes you explore them once, and you're done with it. So I noticed this, that war and violence is a theme I keep coming back to. Sexuality and especially the double standards in society is something that always excites me about sexuality. Ki why this is said but this is done, why this is out in the open but this is hidden at the back. So that kind of hide and seek sexuality has always interested me because it's about human behavior of hiding, revealing. And because of that, it's connected to feminism. It's not that I write only feminist pieces, but eventually a lot of society is connected to how they treat their women, how they treat marginalized people, how they treat the poor, how they treat the voiceless. So a lot of it comes to that, because no matter how much you look at other aspects of society, you will eventually come to that. I can read a poem if there's time. So this poem was, okay, in the mood for a poem, huh? Because I said 2 minutes. Okay, so this poem was written when I was wondering, like I followed a what if thought, ki what if I was the freest woman on earth? What if as a woman I was so free, what would I be? And I thought I would be a country. And I was like, but is a country free? Is even a free country really free? But never mind that. Now while I was thinking about the freest moment of being a country, I also was in a relationship wherein this person was very interrogative and this person became the journalist. And so this poem is called Surrender, and it is between a country and the journalist. A violent love story, I don't know. If I were a country, you would be a journalist, and because you are not an empty-headed bloke out for a quick fix, but investigative, committed, idealist, I would have shot you down a street and left you to bleed. If I were a country and you my journalist, it would be a civil war one too many, revolutions, changes in governments. I would have jailed you and kept you on CCTV. If I were a country and you my journalist, I would have played a wait and watch game to see who wears the other, sleep deprived, akin to a Russian sleep experiment. But the more you stare, the more beautiful someone becomes, remember? The more you stare, the more beautiful someone becomes, remember? Many pass the cellars of my mind, few the cellars of my heart. I would blink first. I would give in from dictatorship to democracy. If I were a country and you my journalist, I would let you run a free press and media to change the face of an entire nation. Thank you.
It's all about writing and connecting and finding your metaphors and finding your meanings. And maybe some of you would click because you would know what she's saying. Some of you would want to interpret it your way. And that's the beauty of poetry. Novoneel, I have a question for you. You know, we all have our own ways of writing. You know, there are a lot of young people who probably would want to write tomorrow. You're experimenting with genres. You're writing different genres. Any piece of advice for these young people on how to write a narrative which is grasping, which catches the audience? Some things that just might work. Say always.
I think it's very difficult to suggest what works always. I think what works always, it cannot be part of a craft. Obviously, you can hone your craft as you keep writing on. But the fundamentals is, I think, one should know where the focus is. Yeah. If your focus is on the story that you're writing and your enjoyment, your happiness and pleasure comes from the fact that you're writing something without the context of a destination that tomorrow it's going to be published and people are going to hold up for your signature or autograph or something, I think their focus is right. Yep. But if you are writing for people to hold you up, then you should become an actor or you struggle there. Yeah. Because then I feel personally that writing is not the thing for you. So you have to first filter and introspect, filter and ask yourself the question, what is your focus? What are you focusing on? Sometimes what happens is that we think we are focusing on X, but actually we want Z. Yes. That's not going to happen. Yes. Because writing in any artistic expression and endeavor is all about the journey. Because that is what will keep you going. and not, when I say keep you going, it's not just about longevity, it's also about at times when you feel, what the hell am I doing writing? Because as artists, we all have our downers. In fact, we have major downers than up days. So during those times, it's the journey that is going to come as a friend, support and you, and somewhere you will feel that thank God I chose something which I have a purpose and I find my joy in it. You know, so to find that is the most important thing. After that, I think you have to just work hard towards it, because then after that it becomes a craft thing, which obviously you have to read a lot, you have to understand it, which genre you are working on. There cannot be one statement, one generalized statement, you do this and you become a successful author or a successful storyteller. It's a very dynamic field. You have to be open. You cannot be rigid. So as artists also, you cannot be rigid. Because I think the most important thing is how welcoming are you to newer perspectives. And this will help you as you grow further. So if you're starting, let's say, because we have a young crowd, if you're starting at the age of 20, 21, you'll have so the tendency is to be rigid about your own perspective, because at 20, 21, you feel the world is a fool and you are the smart one. You know, now you go and as you grow 30s to 40s to 50s, you'll realize I'm the one who's the fool and the world is smart, and that's when you actually begin to live, you know, because you then, undermine your, ultra cool smartness. So I think the bottom line of the question that you're asking, the answer would be that find your focus and be very sure the focus is on the process and not on the outcome. And the second thing is, do you really want to do this? This is a question that we all have to ask. Doesn't matter what we choose in life, because that thing is going to make sure whether you are enjoying what you're doing during your downer days as well. So find your focus and then find your purpose in what you're doing, and just keep doing it without the context of a destination. That's, I think, is the most important thing.
And I think in addition to this, Preeti, if I can ask you, a lot of times in your books, correct me if I'm wrong, the theme actually ends up on the fact that what we plan and what we see, life really isn't. Life as something else for us. And maybe, it could be a question addressing everyone, because you speak a lot on mental health as well. We're in a continuous race, especially when we are wanting to do something. We see all our friends doing really well. Oh, I want to experiment with this writing, but can I do it? That thought. The mental health does go for a toss. The word looks, or that phrase sounds very heavy, but there is this constant race. If we can have a piece of word from your experience for everyone, how do we go easy in life?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I want to add to what Novoneel said. Completely agree with him. And the other clue that, what genre should you write in if anybody wants to write? Look for what kind of books you're drawn to. Read a lot, and once you read a lot, don't write before you read, please. Read a lot before you write. And the kind of books that you are drawn to, say you're drawn to young adult, then maybe you might want to write a young adult. You're drawn to thrillers, maybe you'd want to write a thriller. Over a course of time, you yourself will come to know what is the kind of books you like reading. And generally, when you start off, write with that kind of book which you want to read. Okay, so that's another tip to add to what Novoneel said. And the question that you asked, Divya, is how to kind of
take it easy in life. There's a constant race, and there's this hustle to prove yourself and get better than others all the time.
Yeah. Actually, that's very important. It is important to hustle. It is very important to hustle, but it's also important not to compare. And the two seem contradictory, because if you're hustling, whom are you hustling against, or whom are you hustling for? Are you hustling for yourself, or are you hustling to compete against somebody? And what I have found is that, again, because I'm a diary keeper, 40 years I've kept diaries, you will find when you write that if something didn't work out, it is only because the universe or the larger plan or the wise being or whatever you want to call it, even if you don't believe in God or whatever, there was something else in store for you. Like, I would like you all to do an experiment. Take your last 5 years. Take your last 5 years, write your turning points. 5 years, what are the major events that happened? And then just think back. You will find that one major event happened because something else happened or something else didn't happen. And at that time, it will feel like a huge disappointment. I wanted to go to X university, but my parents didn't let me, or the scholarship didn't come through. But that was because your destiny, I'm a huge believer in destiny, was somewhere else. You had to shine here. And this becomes clear only when you keep a diary, because if without a diary, it's just one day into next day into next day, 1 year merges into next year, you won't know what you did last week, you won't know what you did the week before. But when you write a diary, you are like actually making blocks of time. And when you compare yourself in these blocks of time, like where do I stand at this block of time? Where do I stand in my life at this point? Then you get a very nice answer as to where should you go, what should you do. So that is like a very important thing too. You know, how to hustle and yet not compare, how to achieve what you want, how to not be too disappointed if life doesn't go your way, because you will see all this because you've written it. Because our memory is very short, we forget. But when we write, we remember.
Yes.
So that's one thing which I want to say.
Fantastic. I would want all of you to now take your mics, and I've got some quick questions, more like a rapid fire, and we go one by one before I ask my final question for the evening. I'll just say a word, and whatever comes to your mind, thereafter. Reading. We'll start from you.
Essential.
Lyrics.
Therapeutic.
Home.
A place called home.
Roots.
Everything.
A book that you recommend everybody should read. One book.
Every book. Please read all books.
The God of Small Things.
Yes.
Something that I've written or any book?
Any book.
I would say The Fountainhead.
Food is.
Should be nutritious.
Family. Food is family.
Some love. Food is love.
Wow, food is love. You have so much right here. There's a lot of love everywhere. Education, of course, now that we are here among students, education.
Completely not necessary.
The only way to break through to higher orbits.
Wow.
I'm a dropout. I'm a college dropout. So education is...
Not necessary. That's proven.
That's how it came to me, actually. So it's your choice. I mean, but education of life is important.
Yeah, exactly.
Youth.
Hope for the future, sometimes foolish.
Forever. We are always young.
Right now sitting across.
India.
My absolute love. Love my country.
Karma Bhumi.
Emotion.
And now the final three. These are very important because this is all about you. Vadodara Literature Festival.
Fabulous energy.
Vibrant.
Like, I'm completely flummoxed by everything.
I love it. This one's going on the camera, guys. Parul University, the venue is amazing. Matlab, abhi I'm going to get like some 1,000 clicks outside. Yeah, so Parul University.
Astounding, because I was astounded when I walked in, like I said.
Yes.
Sprawling and very friendly.
I think it's a sea or an ocean because it's huge, it's gigantic.
It's never ending. There's just so much happening everywhere. And finally, I.I.M.U.N, I think fantastic work, fantastic conferences across the world, and fantastic energy. That is me, but yes, I.I.M.U.N.
Excellent initiative.
Once more, encore.
I think very empowering.
And I think on that note, for I.I.M.U.N, I really wanted to add that everything here is being done by 15, 22-year-olds for 11 to 19-year-olds. 200 plus cities with 10,000 plus annual engagements in last 9 years is crazily fantastic. The founder, Rishabh Shah, believes that the way to develop a country is by getting the youth to read, pick up your books, start reading. But on that note, my final question to all of you would be, they say that one reason why Vadodara has been chosen, or smaller cities, so that youth here also can pick up books, get into reading. Things that you think should be done so that there is e-literature everywhere, there is more youth coming towards books. What are the steps you think can be taken, should be taken, that can change the way reading is right now, probably?
Okay, I'll answer it, but I'll take just 1 minute to add to what Preeti was saying. And because you've been hearing Rochelle and Preeti saying that how important journaling is without, I think the most beautiful part of journaling your everyday thing is also, over a period of time, I feel your own truth as an individual gets revealed, and that's so important to know what your truth is. And it slowly gets revealed. And then whenever in life you are in a quandary, you can go back to what's my truth is.
Yeah.
And you can go back and that's basically becomes the basic line of yours.
Yeah.
So anyway, coming to, I think what one should do, I don't know, one thing I strongly feel is just like charity begins at home, I think reading begins at home.
Yes.
And it's an appeal not to just students. I think, I don't know how many parents are here, But I think if a parent picks up a mobile phone in front of a child, the child will pick up the mobile phone.
Yeah.
But a parent picks up a book and reads, or a newspaper or whatever, the child will invariably pick up the book and out of just curiosity know what the parents are doing to do. So I strongly feel, and it's an appeal to the parents, I don't know if they are here or not, that please, Zara and H&M can wait, and Instagram can wait. Please pick up books of varied authors, varied genres, everything, and just read. And make sure you do it in front of your kid so that they think it's very cool to read. Because until and unless we make it very cool to read, I don't think people, because the world has been taken over by screens now.
Yes.
So, and if we have to kind of give competition to the screens, it has to somewhere be very rooted, and nothing better than beginning it at home.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, when a library or a bookstore shuts down, you know that the readers have gone away. And I think that you should mourn that, because it is reading and our libraries, our bookstores are our monuments, okay? They are cultural monuments. So when they shut down, it is a mark of something not happening. And we should mourn that, because that should not happen. We should engage. A lot of our time should be spent with books, because it's such an intimate affair of secluding every other thing, shutting down all other filters and being with that book and yourself. It's not a collective experience like a film consumption, but it has its own spare thing. I just wanted to add to what Preeti and Novoneel had said. I also think one is, of course, it's very wonderful when smaller towns have literature festivals, because why not? Why should everything happen only in the big cities? Absolutely. It should happen everywhere. Absolutely. And I think the big and small comes from how big or small is your thought. How big and small is your mind? How big and small is your vision? On that note, I just wanted to mention, we mentioned about journaling, diary writing. Do examine and keep track of what you think. And not only what you do, your actions, but what you think. Because your thinking will shape your personality and your destiny. And what you speak about yourself in self-talk, self-messaging, not just self-affirmations, how you talk about yourself and how you judge others. One of the most important things as a quite a new storyteller I realized is, when I don't judge my characters, I learn not to judge people. Something that literature taught me about life, not life taught me about literature. So this whole hashtagging business needs to stop, because when you notice that people are not black and white, but they're pretty gray, and they're so amusing and beautiful in their gray, they're so conflicted and complex, but so beautiful. That's what literature taught me. Don't judge. Be neutral in how you look at it. Let the reader decide if that is a villain, if that is an antagonist. You can even have the protagonist and an antagonist. Yes. But the shade is like a 90-30, 90-10. But you decide that. So thoughts, words, deeds, and how you speak. Language is a very big weapon. Yeah. How many negative words you hear or speak matters. Try to keep that language or the word neutral, so that you bring in balanced judgment, less bias, and also less hurt. Because we hurt people a lot when we hashtag them, when we very quickly judge and cancel culture them. So watch your language. It's a weapon. Thank you.
Fantastic.
So what I want to add to what Novoneel said, in order to read more. Okay, if a book is boring, people feel guilty to abandon a book. But my personal thing is, abandon it. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. There are many, find a book that appeals to you. And it doesn't matter what the whole world is reading, whether it's this genre. Like, people think that if I've got this book, even if it's boring, I have to stick with it. No, because there are so many other books. You should care. You should care. The reading should make you feel something. Then automatically you will want to read more. So I review books on my Instagram channel, which I've been reviewing for so many years. So if a book doesn't work, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter if it works for the whole world. So pick books which, if you're a new reader, pick books which are easy to read, which you will be able to complete. Not some fat tome which you won't be, and nobody's going to judge you for it, because this is just your personal thing. So start with books which you are unable to put down. And then as you read, as your tastes evolve, as you grow, you will read more and more genres. But go easy on yourself, and the book should you be able to hold your attention. I think that's very important, because only then will you be able to sustain this habit of reading.
Absolutely. And I read somewhere that a book never leaves you alone. So even when there is nobody, there'll always be a book with you. And I think that's the best friend that will never even tell you that मैं था जब कोई और नहीं था.